Hi, my name is Onyeibo Oku. I'm an open source advocate and a lecturer. I'll be sharing how to automate LibreOffice Calc with Python. You can do the same thing with other programming languages like C, NetBeans, BASIC, and Java. But for this tutorial, we're going to be using Python. Python is simple and easy, and it shouldn't be difficult to understand what we're doing. LibreOffice is also free. It's an open source software just like Python, and that means you can install them on any number of machines you have, and you can compile and modify them to suit you. Or if there is any specific way you want them to behave, you can modify the code so that they do that. And so in this case, we're going to be controlling LibreOffice with Python, and we're going to learn how to do that. There are 3 ways to automate LibreOffice. 3 ways. The first way would be to use an external Python console, like start up Python on an external process, and you're running LibreOffice separately, and you start Python separately. Then you connect to LibreOffice through the Python console and automate from there. That means LibreOffice can be running, and then you connect to it, do what you need to do, and disconnect. That's one way to do it. Another way would be to run the Python script from inside LibreOffice. That means you have the script ready that LibreOffice loads, and you access the Python script and execute it, and something happens within LibreOffice. And that will be the internal method running Python in the scripting context. The third way to control LibreOffice will be to add an extension written in Python to it. You can write some things that you want to automate and package that as an extension. And then LibreOffice can load and execute when certain things are done. So this method is excellent for, maybe you want to add extra functionality, like you want something to happen when a particular button is pressed, or you want to add your own buttons or your own menus to LibreOffice, and you want certain things to happen when those buttons and menus are accessed. Then this way would be an excellent way to automate things in LibreOffice. Write those routines in Python and create buttons, and when the extension is loaded into LibreOffice, voila, you have more functionality. So we're going to look at these 3 ways of automating LibreOffice. We'll start first with the external, and then we'll go to the third one. We'll just have a brief look at it, but we'll spend most time on running the Python from inside LibreOffice. This is the easiest way to get started, is to have LibreOffice execute the scripts. You automate from there, help you understand how LibreOffice works and things you can do. Then you can now think of writing things like extensions and all that. Okay, so this is what LibreOffice looks like when you start, and we're going to be spending time on the Calc components. Don't forget, it's a suite. That means you can also do word processing. You can do presentation, drawings, and formulas in LibreOffice, just like the Microsoft Office suite. This is LibreOffice suite. But we will be automating the spreadsheet component, that's Calc. So I'm going to press this, and here we are. 2 things. I assume that we're already familiar with spreadsheets and we can do formulas and things like that, although we're not going to be doing formulas in this tutorial. You understand how, cells and columns and referencing and things like that. So I assume you're already familiar with that. And then two, this tutorial also assumes that you are fairly familiar with coding to some extent, some basics in programming language. It doesn't matter which programming language you've looked at or understand, but as long as you have some basic, then you should be good. But assuming you don't have any programming experience at all, I hope this will encourage you to do so as you go through. It's not difficult. A lot of things I've prepared some things already, so won't be spending too much time on coding. Really, it's just to understand how it happens, and then from there we can grow. So the first method will be to control LibreOffice from a console running a separate process. Right now, LibreOffice is running, and unfortunately, it was started without an open socket, which means we can't connect to it. And that's the default setting when you start LibreOffice, Calc, or any component of LibreOffice, is that LibreOffice is not listening. LibreOffice is just running solo, it's on its own, and you cannot control it from outside. Every other thing works. The extensions and the scripting in the context, that's the ones that happen from inside, but controlling from outside, no. So to experience that, we need to shut this down, close the running instance of LibreOffice, and start it again. This time, we tell it to start the Calc component immediately, and also to accept connections. It wasn't accepting before. To accept connections and create the sockets, ports 202. Okay, I'm forgetting the hosts. Local hosts, which is this machine, and port. Okay, so essentially what this command does is that it starts LibreOffice Calc in particular, and it's open to control on this port 2002. And this machine I'm working with now will act as the server. That means it's possible to control LibreOffice over a network. Okay, so this should get us started. Okay, we're back, and in this session, in this running instance, LibreOffice is now listening and expecting some external connection. So we are going to run this from outside. So we're going to start a Python process separately and run this code. And what this code does is that it tells Python to hook into the universal network object, which is a way LibreOffice throws its internals open for connection and for control. So it will connect, it will import the module for doing that and get the running instance of LibreOffice. We will create a resolver to be able to connect to that running instance, and the resolver connects to the running instance on this port. It tells the resolver that it's running on this particular machine, and so on. And from there we get the service manager, which then gives us the desktop. Okay, so we'll run this code, and from there we'll be able to do things on LibreOffice and see how it works. So we'll go straight to the Python console. Now, if you're running this tutorial from Windows, you might need to install Python, although in Linux it comes with, the Python comes already installed on Linux operating systems, and this I'm running here is a Fedora operating system, Fedora Linux operating system comes with it, and you will need to install Python 3, the latest is good, and hook up your paths, and you should be good to go. Let's do it. So we have Python 3. Python 3 has started, and we'll import UNO. It's done. And let's speed things up by, just going down and run everything. Copy and paste. There. It's all done. Okay, so that means we have the document. We first got the desktop, which is this. That's this we're looking at now is what LibreOffice calls its desktop. And then the document is the open document, which is untitled at the moment. So we have an untitled Calc document. So to be sure we are looking at the right one, we can say document. This document, can we get its title? Yeah, we can. And the title is what? Untitled, just like we're seeing here. So you see that we are able to connect to LibreOffice from a separate Python console, running separately from LibreOffice, and we can do things to LibreOffice from here. This is one way to automate LibreOffice. There's a lot of things we can do. Let's say document, let's get the sheets and put that somewhere. Sheets. We are going to go into that document and get the sheets. Right now there's only one sheet 1 here, but when we say get sheets, we're getting every sheet, and the code doesn't care how many sheets are already there, but it just gets everything. And we have the sheets. We can from there also get one sheet get sheets, get by index 0. Yeah, so what we just did is that we got the first sheet. It's indexed 0, it starts from 0 to count. Assuming there was another sheet, that would be 1, another sheet 2, like that, 0, 1, 2. And so we got the first sheet. So what do we do with it? So let's get it again, and this time around, let's get the cell, get cell range by name. Okay, get cell range by name, and what name? A1. Okay, we got the cell range. That will be this one that is selected now, A1. Okay, what do we do with it? We can put something inside there. So let's do it. Let's say set string. That will set the string value to whatever we want. Whatever we want. Whatever we want. Okay, so we're going to put whatever we want inside cell A. Let's do it. It's done. Whatever we want. Cool, isn't that? See, we are automating LibreOffice Calc. This is awesome. This is good. This is good. So this is just the basic. This is just showing us how we can access LibreOffice from outside and change things. There's a whole lot of things we can do with this opportunity, with this API. We can control just about almost everything. We can hide columns, we can hide rows, we can, do a lot. Change cell widths and all that. It's all possible. But we're not going to go into all those. I'm just sharing that it's possible, and I've just shown you one way to do it would be, as we've seen, to start LibreOffice as a server, make sure it has an open port that you can access, and then start Python on its console separately, then connect to LibreOffice and start automating. So this is one way to do it, and we've done that. So let's look at another way to do it. We're going to go to the third way, the third method, which will be to use, as we saw, extension. It's still Python, but it comes separate, and you add it to it, and things happen. So let's look at that. I have here an extension called MRI. MRI is an inspection add-on that allows programmers to have a look at the inside of LibreOffice. So it's a cool add-on, and it's written completely in Python. And so I don't need to create something else. Let's just use this one and see what it's like to have an add-on and then change the internals and control LibreOffice from there. So we'll get back to LibreOffice and go to Tools, Extension Manager, and we are going to add an extension. We'll get the MRI and we open. And it's asking us to accept the license. You have to read through and then accept. And there you have it. You have MRI, Universal Network Objects Inspection tool. And what this tool does is that it allows you to learn more about controlling LibreOffice. So it's telling us that it needs to restart for the plugin to work. LibreOffice needs to start again so that it can load with the extension. No, we don't need to save. Don't save. Wait for it. It's back. So we go to Tools, we go to Add-ons, and we see that the MRI tool is there. Now, something has happened already. The add-on, the extension, has added something. This wasn't there before. These menus were not there. These menu items were not there before, but the add-on has modified LibreOffice and added these menus. And assuming the add-on was written in a way that it adds buttons, you would have seen more buttons here. So this is one way to automate LibreOffice. That's to use add-ons and be able to access click buttons and Python runs, and things happen. And wow, that's it. So let's have a closer look at the MRI tool. So this is the MRI tool, and when we selected the MRI tool, we just selected only the MRI, not the MRI selection. There's a difference. MRI selection will open up this object here, that is the A1 cell, and tell you more about the functions and the methods and the services that the programmer can access to do something with that particular cell. And that's what MRI is about. It helps you go through everything inside LibreOffice and see what you can do. Now, remember, when we connected from the Python console. We got the document, we got service manager, got documents, and then we now got sheets. Now let's have a look at this. We'll see that there is a get sheets here, see? So let's double click on that. Get sheets, what can we get? We can get sheet by index, that like we did. It's asking which one. We did 0, and there you are. And we have the sheet 0, and we don't have anything on that sheet. So this is sheet 0, and so you can just keep inspecting, running methods, and while you're doing that, you'll be seeing the effects on LibreOffice. And this is a very cool add-on, and it's all written in Python. But this is just an example of an extension. You can write yours. That is beyond the scope of this tutorial. I'm only showing us what's possible, that yes, we can control LibreOffice from outside and create buttons, menu, have them run Python code that is added to LibreOffice. And all that is made possible by adding extension written in Python. This actually is, let's rename this. You'll find the trick is that this is actually a zip file, and there are things inside them. And from there, you can see all the blah, 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 and the code that is running and all that. Excellent. We are not going to go into how to do all this, but suffice it to know that it's possible, and that you can write your own extensions in Python and have things happen when the buttons you created are pressed, your own code will run, things happen fast and fun. So once you double click on an OXT file, LibreOffice knows how to install the extension. If the person that created the extension has followed all the protocols, everything should be fine, and you should end up with additional stuff here. Okay, let's go to the second method of controlling LibreOffice, and that will be through the scripting interface, the scripting context. You go to Tools, Macros, and you run macro, and that takes you to all the available scripts on the machine that you can use to automate things in LibreOffice. Right now, we already see that we have the MRI, which these scripts came installed when we installed the MRI tool. The standard comes with the LibreOffice itself. And then other ones that you add come in here. And once you select them, you can run and things will happen. Okay? Okay, so let's look at an example. Right now, we're going to look at this example, this script, very simple script. What does it do? You see, instead of getting the document through the UNO object here, we get things differently. With the script context object, we access the internals of LibreOffice again. But this tells LibreOffice that you are accessing these internals from a script. So that way it does what it needs to do and runs the script from differently as it would run an extension. So here we have a method, and what this does is that it simply gets the document, gets the sheet in the document, gets the first sheet in the document, by index, that's 0, and then gets the cell G7 and writes automated inside the cell. That's what this does. Okay, so how do we get this to run inside LibreOffice? Well, we just save this into LibreOffice. You go to the configuration, go to LibreOffice, and the user scripts. Let's pause a bit here. Once you've gotten to the configuration, LibreOffice for user here, chances are that you wouldn't see this folder. If you don't, create one. Don't forget to make it a capital S, scripts. This is where your scripts will live. Create another folder called Python. I already have a module here, but we're going to add a new one. So we call it UNO script. Okay, good. And so we've saved that into that folder. If you're running Windows, you will find that folder under the app, then you go down and you see the same hierarchy. Okay. Once you get to the users folder, you go through the app and then down into the other folders. Okay, so we have this now where it belongs, and if we go to Tools, Macros, Run, Macro, you see the script is already showing here. And when we click on write something, which is the method that we saw, we run it, it goes to G7 and puts automated. Cool. So now we can automate LibreOffice from our own scripts. So you write the scripts, you put it there, and LibreOffice starts up, and you can access it from Tools, Macros. You can run the macro, access, and wow. We've already done this before, so there's no point doing it again. So that's one way to do it. Let's go back to our code and look at it again. Through the script context objects, we get the document, store that in a variable called document, and from there we access the sheets. The sheets, a collection of sheets. When assuming there were more than one sheet, there will be many inside this variable. And then you access the first one by index 0. It starts with 0 and then it goes on. And then you go to the cell called G7 and set the string to automated. Okay, so we can do more than this. Let's look at something more involving. For this example here, we're going to open a different file. We're going to open a different file. Let's first put this script right inside our configuration. LibreOffice for user scripts Python, and we'll call it represents py. Okay, we've put the script inside the script folder where LibreOffice will see it. And what does this script do? To understand what it does, we need to open a document that I've prepared for this tutorial called names. Okay, now this document has 3 sheets, titled Group A, B, C, and these sheets have names on them. The first is the surnames, and the second first names, the middle names, likewise, and all the other sheets. But on this sheet, we'll have 50 names, and all the other sheets also have 50 names. So what we want to do is to represent this document, this information, this data. We want to represent it again in another format. You might, as you work with spreadsheets, come to a position where you need to change things, to present things differently. And what happens when you have so many documents presented in a particular way and you need to represent them in a different way? So this will be a good example of how to automate that. We could go in and manually change things, which of course is pain, or we could write a script to do it for us. What we want to do is to represent this data so that the first name is capital, followed by a comma, and then the name, other names, all in one cell, not in different cells. So we want everything to show in one cell so that the next cell, B, will be free to do other things. Maybe the age or the amount of money spent or whatever that we, But for this tutorial, we're just going to rearrange the names. And so we just have the names only, and we will change the way they are presented. And so that's what the script will do. So let's get back to that script. It does this. It actually starts with the process names, which is what LibreOffice will see. Having declared this G exported script variable and said process names, LibreOffice will only see this method. Otherwise, it would list all methods in this script. But with G exported scripts defined and assigned, there's a variable assigned, there's a value assigned to it, which is a tuple. These tuples contain names of methods that you want LibreOffice to see. And we have said show only process names. So only this will show for LibreOffice. And what does it do? It goes and it starts, it says index in range means it's going to get sheets. Sheets here talks about the sheet in the document. Of course, we have to first get the document with the script context, and then the sheets. And then with that, we now begin to go through all the sheets. So for indexing this, what it's going to do is to loop through all the sheets. With this, having counted how many they are, it will do the count itself. If we go, we'll see that there are 1, 2, 3. There are 3 in number. This will loop through those 3, and for each one, it will get the selection of names. This get cell range by position does this. It goes here, puts a cursor here, and selects down to the very last. That's what that does. 0, 0, this is 0, 0, and this particular cell here is 249. And so it's going to put a cursor here and select up to here. That's what happens on this place here. It selects that range, and then it gets all the data in that range and sends them to be reformatted to this method here. And this method goes through all those names one after the other, and now does what? Changes the first name to an uppercase, adds a comma, adds a middle first name, and adds a space, and then add the third name. It does that and puts them back into a tuple again, ready to be dumped back into LibreOffice. And before it dumps it, it does what? It clears everything. The contents are cleared so that, you don't get a jumble of information. And then it goes ahead, selects the same sizable, a size that will suit what it's going to put in there, not this now, because this will mean this is all the data it's selected. It will now select from here to here, because that's only one column that we're dealing with. Everything will go into one column now. So we go back. Hello, we're back. It will do that and set the data to what we already reformatted. And after that, it's done. So this is what the code does. Let's try it and see how it works. We'll go to Tools, Macros. We're going to run the macro. We'll find it here as represent. Notice that only process names are showing. It's not showing us reformat names. It's only showing us this one. It's because we declared only that one to be shown on that screen. So only this is showing. And so when we run this, every name goes into one cell. Voila. And guess what? It did it for all the sheets. Imagine that you're doing this manually, or you will have to write some formulas to do this. Just imagine how much time this script has saved us. So there you have it. This is how you can automate LibreOffice using Python. And what we've done here is the very basic things that you can do. Remember, we can do almost about anything. You can hide columns, you can add formulas, automatically, you don't need to type them. You can create the document by code, add formulas automatically, and add data, and tell LibreOffice execute, and LibreOffice will execute, and all those formulas will come into play, and everything is working, and it's all happening really fast. So this is how to automate LibreOffice using Python. And I had to type all this so that we can speed up the tutorial process to fit into the time that we have. I will make these scripts available so that you can look at them closely and understand what they do at your own pace. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you understood it. I hope it made sense. And